We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph in Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 76a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the Mishnah which said, let's say a husband gives a get to his wife, and he gives the get to his wife on condition that she nurses his child. So in such a situation, there's a machlokes amoroim between Rav and Rav Ashi. If, let's say, the person doesn't say the amount of time that she has to nurse the child, according to Rava, we assume that that's 2 years that she has to nurse the child, like the standard amount of time that a child is nursed. And according to Rav Ashi, we say no, even 1 day is going to be sufficient, is going to be good enough, and that's what it means in the Mishnah. It doesn't mean she has to nurse him for 2 years in the Mishnah, according to Rav Ashi. It simply means in his first 2 years, she has to nurse him 1 time. And so the Gemara asks from the Seifa of the Mishnah. The Seifa of the Mishnah discusses a case where he actually specifies in the condition that it needs to be for 2 years. And in the Seifa, they have a machlokes tanoim over there, whether, let's say, she's not able to do it, some circumstance outside of her control, is that considered a problem or not? And in any case, the Gemara now asks from the Seifa and says as follows: Bishlomo l'Rava. I understand how you can understand the Mishnah according to Rava as follows: Reisha b'delo parish. We'll just say the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about a situation where he didn't say an amount of time. It was just stam, nurse my son, and we assume it's to be for 2 years. And in such a situation, let's say over there the son dies or something along those lines, she's not able to do it for a full 2 years. But still, over there, everybody agrees she's fulfilled the condition, because the point is all that is necessary in terms of the nursing, and she's done all that was necessary. But Seifa the parish, but in the Seifa at the end of the Mishnah, the reason why we have a machlokes tanoim over there is because there he explained it has to be for 2 years, and so therefore at the end of the day it wasn't for 2 years. There's a machlokes tanoim. The condition wasn't technically fulfilled, whether that's considered a fulfilled condition or not. Elul Rav Ashi, but according to Rav Ashi, if he's saying that even in a situation where you're talking about it's always going to be 1 day, in a situation even where it's low parished, meaning the ratio of the Mishnah also is there was no specific amount of time that was given, and that still is 1 day. So Maishna Ratio, Maishna Seifa. What's the difference between the Ratio and the Seifa? And the Gemara says to that Kasha, the Gemara says to that, indeed, that is difficult. And Rashi explains, B'shlomo l'Rava, I understand according to Rava, to uki reisha de masnisin beis shonim mamish v'afagav destam. In other words, according to Rava, the beginning of the Mishnah, she has to nurse the child for 2 years, even though there was never a statement made that it has to be for 2 years, but we assume it's 2 years. So reisha, so therefore the first part of the Mishnah, the reisha of the Mishnah, the ka'amar meis haben b'soch shtei shonim harezaget, because what did it say in the reisha of the Mishnah? It said that if the son dies within the 2 years, so that's still okay, it's still a fulfillment of the condition, b'delo parish, because it was never explained that it has to be specifically 2 years. But the low parish based on him, they never said 2 years. Varehini kaso called sarcho, and she nursed him all that was necessary. The child died within the 2 years, and therefore everybody agrees it's obvious she's fulfilled the condition. And seifa the parish, but at the end of the Mishnah, it's talking where he actually specified in the condition it needs to be for 2 years. Al karchach davga kamer, so that's why it's different over there, because he was saying it has to be 2 years. Dalo itzrich lefrushay parish, he didn't need to explain anything. He said 2 years. He's saying it has to be 2 years. Then you already have a machlokes tanoim. She didn't fulfill the condition, but it was outside of her control. That's a machlokes. Elul Rav Ashi, but according to Rav Ashi, damar reisha de masnisin yom echad ka'amar. Rav Ashi says in the ratio also it just has to be for 1 day. Al karchach meis haben o ha'av de katani kagon shemeis v'lo ani kaso klal. So obviously, according to Rav Ashi, what we're talking about over here is that the son died or the father died, she wasn't able to nurse. In the case of the son, she wasn't able to nurse him at all. In other words, she certainly didn't fulfill any of the condition in the Reisha, according to Rav Ashi. You have to explain that, because all she needed to do was 1 time. And so it says she didn't do it. V'amai hareza get. So if that's the case, why is it a get? Hare lo niskayim klum min hatanai. Nothing was fulfilled in terms of the Tanai. So what would be the difference between the Reish and the Seifa? The Seifa is the same exact thing. In the Seifa, he says for 2 years, nurse my child for 2 years, and she didn't fulfill the technical condition. You have a machlokes tanoim, you have a shita that says it's no good. And so the same thing happens in the Reish of the Mishnah. She said that the condition that he made was you have to nurse, and we understand that to mean 1 day, and she didn't even do it for 1 day because the child died before she was able to nurse. So over there also it should be a problem. Why over there do we say it's a get? Rav Ashi can't really explain the distinction between the Reish and the Seif, and that's why the Gemara ends that it is indeed a kasha. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, this is from the Tosefta, Hareza Gitach al Menashe Teshamshi as Abba Shtei Shonim. Let's say he says to his wife, this is your get on condition that you serve my father for 2 years, V'al Menashe Tiniki as Beni Shtei Shonim, or on the condition that you nurse my child for 2 years, again, similar to the case of the Mishnah, Afal Pishalon Eskayim Hatnai, even though the condition was not fulfilled, Hareza get. It is considered to be a good get, according to this first Tana of the Brisa, Lefishalo Amar Lo Im Teshamshim teshamshi, im teiniki v'im lo teiniki, because he didn't say the double language that's required by a Tanai. According to Rabbi Meir, a Tanai kafel is required. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the words of Rabbi Meir, meaning Rabbi Meir's opinion is you need a Tanai kafel. Here there was no Tanai kafel, so it's as if there's no condition at all. The get was given unconditionally, and that's why Rabbi Meir says, hareza get, it is a kosher get. The Chachamim omer, but the Chachamim say, Neskayim hatanai hareza get. If the condition is fulfilled, then it is a good get. V'im la'aveino get, and if the condition is not fulfilled, then it's not a good get. In other words, the Chachamim say there's no requirement for tanai kafel, and therefore this is considered an effective condition that he's putting on the get. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Ein loch tanai b'ksuvim. We don't find any conditions in the ksuvim she'eno kafel, which is not a double tanai. Now it's a question the Gemara is about to say. What exactly does Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel mean that we don't find any tanai? When we look through Tanakh, we don't find that it's not double. They're always made with a double language. And so there are two understandings of what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is saying. Some say that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is responding to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir requires Tanai kafel, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is saying you don't need a Tanai kafel. There are others that say he's actually responding, arguing with the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan are saying you don't need a Tanai kafel, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is responding you do, and the Gemara elaborates. Some say that he's talking to Rabbi Meir. He's saying to Rabbi Meir as follows. Ein loch tanai b'ksuvim she'eno kafel. You don't find any conditions in the ksuvim that are not double language. V'havalu shnei ksuvim haboim ke'echad. So therefore we employ the rule of shnei ksuvim haboim ke'echad, meaning two psukim that are essentially saying the same thing. Now if it was a general rule, you wouldn't have to say it over and over again. If you're saying it over and over again, you're saying only in these cases, and we say v'chol shnei ksuvim haboim ke'echad, when you have shnei ksuvim haboim ke'echad, ein malam, then you can't learn anything from there. Essentially, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is saying, because of the fact that it's always kafel, that shows that in general that's not necessary. And Ikod Amris, there are those who say L'Rabbanan Kamarlu, that he's speaking to the Rabbanan. V'achi Kamarlu, he's saying to the Rabbanan as follows: Ein loch tanai b'ksuvim she'eno kafel. There is no tanai in the ksuvim. There's no condition in the ksuvim that's not double language. V'gamrina minai. We should learn from there that you need to have the double language, meaning along the same lines as Rabbi Meir, that you need to have tanai kafel. And the Gemara continues, we have the following contradiction. Let's say he says to his wife, this is your get, on the condition you serve my father for 2 years, on the condition you nurse my son for 2 years, Eino get, if the father dies or the son dies, meaning the condition was not fulfilled, it is not going to be a good get. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Here Rabbi Meir seems to be saying that the Tanai is an effective Tanai. The Chachamim omer, and the Chachamim say, even though the Tanai is not fulfilled, harei get, that is considered to be a good get. Yecholi hishatomar lo, because she can say to him, Tein li avicha v'asham shenu, give me your father, I'll serve him. Tein li bonech v'anikenu, give me bincha v'anikenu, give me your son, and then I'll nurse him. And in any case, the Gemara says, Kasha de Rabbi Meir ad Rabbi Meir, Kasha de Rabbanan ad Rabbanan. On the surface, this seems to be a contradiction within Rabbi Meir, seems to be a contradiction within the Rabbanan, because here Rabbi Meir is saying that in this particular case, where it seems to be it was not a Tanai kafel, it sounds like the Tanai was effective. And the Rabbanan, on the contrary, the Rabbanan are saying, even though the Tanai was not fulfilled, it is considered a good get. It sounds like the Tanai is, even though the Tanai was not fulfilled, rather, it is a good get, meaning it seems like the Tanai was nothing. And the Gemara answers as follows. To Rabbi Meir ad Rabbi Meir lo kasha. First of all, it's not a contradiction within Rabbi Meir. Hasam b'delo kafle l'tanoi, hacha b'de kafle l'tanoi. Say simply, even though it doesn't say in this brisa it was a double language, we'll understand that this brisa is talking about where he formulated the condition properly. He used a tanai kafel, he used the double language. That's why Rabbi Meir says the tanai is effective, the get is being given conditionally. And that's why Rabbi Meir says that in such a situation, again, if it's Mesa Av or Mesa Ben, she doesn't fulfill the Tanai, it's not going to be a get. How do we answer the contradiction within the Chachamim? Why are the Chachamim saying over here that even though the Tanai was not fulfilled, it is a get? For Rabbanan ad Rabbanan lo kasha, the Rabbanan is also not a contradiction. Man Chachamim dehacha, who are the Chachamim over here? The Chachamim over here are Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel here. It's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. That's the same Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel that was mentioned in our Mishnah. The Amar kol hakava she'ena heimena harei ze get. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says anything that withholds her from fulfilling the condition, but it's outside of her control. It's something that has nothing to do with her. So then that is considered a get. That's exactly what she's saying over here. The case is the father died, the son died, and she could say, it's not my fault, I didn't fulfill the condition. If you give me your father, so to speak, I'll serve him. If you give me bincha, if you give me your son, then I'll be able to nurse him. This is something that is not, it's something that is outside, again, of her control, and that's why it's considered to be a get. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Amar lo bifnei shnayim. Let's say he says in front of two people, he says to her, Hareza gitech al menas shetashamshi es abba beis shanim. He says in front of two people, there are witnesses here, this is your get on condition that you serve my father for 2 years. He places this condition on the get. V'chazer v'yamar lo bifnei shnayim. And then he says to her in front of a different two witnesses, Hareza gitech al menas shetitni li masayim zuz. This is your get, different condition. The condition is that you give me 200 zuz. So the halacha is lo bitel divrei ha'achron es harishon. That second condition is not mevatel the first condition. Both conditions are really there in terms of the giving of the get, and what that means is she has a choice which condition to fulfill. Ratzta misham shaso, ratzta nosenes lo masayim. So if she wants, she can serve him, she can serve the father, and what he's really saying is, if you don't want to serve my father, so then instead you'll pay money, you'll pay the 200 zuz. That's how we understand the conditions in that case. But let's say you have a different case. Let's say he says to her in front of two witnesses, this is your get on condition you give me 200 zuz. And then he says in front of a different two witnesses, it's going to be your get on condition you give me 300 zuz. So over there already he's changing the condition. He's modifying the condition. We say that the latter condition nullifies the first one, and therefore we essentially say that really she has to give 300 zuz. Now, at the end of the Braisa, it says a statement as follows: you can't have one witness from the first set of witnesses and one witness from the latter set of witnesses. They can't join together. Now, the point over here is as follows. Generally speaking, when a husband gives a get to his wife, we assume if she produces a get that it was given unconditionally. Unless we have witnesses otherwise who say that there was some kind of condition attached to the giving of this get, we assume it was unconditional. And so the Braisa at the end is saying you can't have one witness from the first set and one witness from the second set say, we know there was a condition, even though there was different conditions that they each witnessed, but they can't join together. And the Gemara says, on which case are we going on in this Braisa? Are we going on the case where there were the two conditions that the latter condition did not nullify the first condition, meaning the case where she could either serve the father or she could give 200 zuz, or are we going on the Seifa where the last condition actually overrode the first condition? The Gemara says, if you're going to say we're going on that last case where really only the last condition counted, hare batal. So over there, obviously you can't use a witness from the first condition. That condition is batal. It's nullified anyway. So that's too obvious. So Ella Reisha, rather must be that this statement where it says that you can't join together the witnesses, it's going on the first case of the Braisa. Again, the first case of the Braisa, both conditions are in effect. She has a choice which one to do. But the Gemara says, Pshita, but isn't that also obvious that they can't join together? The Gemara says, not necessarily. Ma'u detema, because what you have said, kol l'kiyume tanai mitzdarfen, that in a situation where she really has a choice again, she's able to choose which tanai, so maybe they could join together, at least testify there is some condition, kamash malon, so that's what it's teaching. No, they're not allowed to join together. Rashi explains, what you might have thought is, since the get is fulfilled with one of the two conditions, it's all like really one condition. It's like you had a condition where you do this or that, it's all one. So then maybe they could join together, the witnesses. That's what it's teaching us, they're not able to join together. And we will take a look at the previous Rashis as well. Amar lo b'fnei shnayim harei gitach. Again, he says the two. This is you're getting as one condition. V'lo masur lo b'fneim. The case over is he doesn't actually give it in front of that first set of witnesses. Ti masur lo igr shalab b'hai tonight. Because if he gave it to her in front of the first witnesses, then she's divorced with that first condition. You can't add on a condition after it's given. V'su lo matzi lasnuya tano achrin. You can't make another condition. Elakach amar b'fneim kishem serenu lo em serenu el al manaskein. What he's really saying to the first two witnesses, when I give it to her, this is going to be the condition, and then then he says to a different two witnesses a different condition. And he gives it, and again the Braisa goes on to say that in some cases he's not mevatel his first condition, and in some cases he is. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hareza gitech im lo basi mikan ad shloshim yom. Let's say the husband says to his wife, this is your get if I don't return within 30 days. Vayaholech mi Yehuda leGalil, and he's traveling from Yehuda to Galil. Higia Antifris, if he reaches Antifris, v'chazar, and he returns, bitel to know, he has now nullified that condition. Rashi explains, v'higia Antifris v'chazar miyad. The point is, he reaches Antifris, and then he returns right away. He returns earlier than 30 days. The condition was that if he does not return within 30 days, the get will be chal. Here he did return within the 30 days, to know batal. So the condition is nullified. Now here the language of to know batal is a little strange, And so Rashi explains, Kilomar means as follows. Veshuv eino kosher legarish bo. It means he cannot use this get. He cannot make an effective divorce here. Ve'afilu chazar v'halach legalil. The point is, even if he again would now travel to Galil, v'nishta shloshim yom, and he would wait there, he would be there for 30 days. So it seemed like he did fulfill the condition. Eino get. It's still not going to be a get. What's the reasoning? The Kasal Kadaitach, right now, the Gemara thinks the Mishnah means as follows. Antifris betchilas Galil here. Antifris is actually the beginning of Galil, so he actually has reached Galil. V'hari mitanai harishon halach leGalil v'lo shash loshim yom. So what he's essentially done is, according to the condition, he has now went to Galil. He hasn't stayed there for 30 days. He came back right away. And so therefore, ubitel haget, therefore the get is now batel. He didn't fulfill the condition to allow the get to be chal. Shari ba, because he returned. Avolim lo higil Antifris, and the point is as follows. Let's say he traveled, but he never got to Antifris. He barely got out of his house. The chazron, he returned. Ul'achar yom, then he later, halach leGalil, he goes to Galil, v'nishta shloshim yom, and stays there for 30 days, harezim ugureshes, then she would be divorced. Shezman hashloshim lo nikva elam mishiyelech leGalil. The Gemara understands the Mishnah, the Gemara initially understands the Mishnah to mean that the 30 days starts from the time that he actually goes to Galil. V'arei lo halach harata v'nishta, he hasn't yet went to Galil, so you don't start the count yet. You don't start and say that everything's been nullified. That's the initial understanding of the Mishnah. So again, the point is, Antifris, according to this understanding, is in Galil, and since he got to Antifris, he got to Galil, and he came back right away, so therefore the get is not going to be chal. And the Mishnah continues along the same lines. Let's say he says again, this is your get if I don't return in 30 days. In this case, he's going from Galil to Yehuda. And he reaches Kfar Usnai. Again, the initial understanding is that Kfar Usnai is in Yehuda. The Chazar, he returns Bitel to know, again, the condition has been nullified. This is your get if I don't return in 30 days. And he's going to Medinas Hayam. He's leaving Eretz Yisrael, and he reaches Akko, and he returns. Again, Bitel to know, he has nullified his condition. Let's say he says, this is your get if I stay away from you for 30 days. If he goes and comes back, since he didn't go into seclusion with her, get, this is going to be a kosher get. And Rashi says, "Kozman she'ever mikeneged panecha, kishe'eshta shloshim yom over mikeneged panecha, miyad yehe get." The point is that if he leaves for 30 days, so then it's going to be a get. Vayaholechu ba b'gemara parch. The Gemara is going to ask on this. He doesn't seem to have left for 30 days. Here he goes and comes back, comes back. He never leaves for 30 days. Why should it be a get? V'lo over she'yaholechu ba b'soch shloshim. He kept going and coming within 30. So the Gemara is going to ask, why is it a kosher get? And the Gemara says, "Lemeimer da Antifris beGalil have a kaimis." The Mishnah meaning to say that Antifris is in Galil. Again, that's the initial understanding of the Mishnah according to the Gemara, that Higiel Antifris means he actually reaches Galil. Urimini, however, we have a contradiction to that. Antifris beYehuda, Kfar Usnai beGalil. It says in the Brisa that Antifris is actually in Yehuda, and Kfar Usnai is actually in Galil. That's also the opposite. Again, it sounded like from our Mishnah that if you go from Galil to Yehuda and you get to Kfar Usnai, it sounded like Kfar Usnai is in Yehuda. But here it's saying, no, the opposite, Kfar Usnai is actually in Galil. And Bein Tayim, and not say he's in between those two places, Matila no so l'chumra, so there we're not sure exactly, and we treat it stringently. Megureshes, she's somewhat divorced, it's going to say Megureshes, ve'ena Megureshes. Rashi explains, Bein Tayim, hayaholech mi Yehuda leGalil, it means as follows. Let's say someone is going from Yehuda to Galil, va'averes Antifris, and he passes Antifris, u'lechvar Usnai lo, but he doesn't yet get to Kfar Usnai. So he's in a situation where it seems like he may have left Yehuda, he may have gotten to Galil, but we're not sure. The Chazar besoch shloshim, and then he returns within 30 days, ula'achar zman, but then later Chazar v'halach leGalil mamish, then he clearly does go to Galil, v'shani stays there. Matila no so l'chumra, so there we deal strictly, we're not really sure whether the condition was fulfilled or not. Ve'amrinan, so we say Megureshes lipasul l'kuna, we're strict with her when we say she's considered like she's divorced in terms of being disqualified from kahuna, but on the other hand, we're also going to say Eina Megureshes. We apply all the stringencies. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Vav Amud Beis.